Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official audio show of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, Kirk Buchner, the Buck. The owner, the operator of NotInHallOfFame.com, and the sister sites, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame and the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We'll have some big announcements on that in the next couple weeks. It's Season 1, Episode 41 of the Hall of Fame show, and Evan Nolan and I, we've got a few things to talk about. Three very prominent Hall of Famers have left us, sadly. New York Yankees pitcher Whitey Ford, probably the greatest pitcher in Yankees history. Certainly a very important part of 6 World Series titles, has left us at age 92. We also lost who I consider to be one of the greatest second basemen in the last 75 years, maybe ever, not so sure, but he's certainly in that conversation. Joe Morgan, former Cincinnati Red, Philadelphia Philly, and Houston Astro, two-time World Series champion. He has passed away. And from the world of pro football, Fred Dean, who is a member of 5 Halls of Fame. We'll talk about that. Also a two-time Super Bowl champion with the San Francisco 49ers. He passed away at age 68 due to complications of COVID-19. We also looked at something a little bit more positive and a little bit more fun. The National Basketball Association season 2019-2020 is officially in the books, and we looked at a few players who really improved their stock based on their performance in the playoffs in terms of getting into the ultimate prize, at least in our eyes, the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. So without further ado, let's bring in Evan and start the conversation. Evan, how are things shaking out for you?
I'd like to take this opportunity to make a public apology to the family of Laszlo Branikovich. I know that I made the mistake of saying yesterday you had called me to do the show like normal, but my daughter was having trouble sleeping, so I went and snuggled her to sleep and fell asleep myself. And you called up, and I was like, man, let's just do it tomorrow. Actually, you said let's do it tomorrow because I was clearly out. But I did mention that for the second week in a row, the Beige Mistress had, passed through. Mm-hmm. Today, the number 15 on the 1972 silver medal Olympic winning Hungarian national soccer team, Laszlo Branikovich, passed away at the age of 70. The Beige Mistress strikes again, and I feel incredibly responsible.
You're deadlier than COVID.
To Hungarian athletes, the answer to that is clearly yes.
Yes. Although to an American president, apparently COVID is immune. Like, who knew?
Well, yeah. Yeah, well, whatever. But, who knew that something that started as a joke is
real.
Serious, man. Of all the weird things that happened in 2020, this is one of the weirdest.
Yeah, right up there with what we were just sort of like touching on right before. What the most 2020 thing ever is the Houston Astros winning the World Series, which could happen.
With a sub 500 record and going down 3-0 in the ALCS. I mean, they haven't won the whole thing yet, but they're up 7-2 as we speak here in Game 6. And if they win this whole thing. So, we all know that Rob Manfred's trying to destroy baseball. Mm-hmm. Which best accomplishes his plan? The sub-500 Astros team winning the World Series or a Tampa-Atlanta World Series?
I'd say a sub-500 Houston. I mean, I think the ratings are better if Houston goes through, just because I don't know about you, Evan. Like both our teams are out. But I'm watching the Houston series to watch them lose.
I'm sorry. I just want to contend my team didn't play this year, but continue.
Oh, okay. Well, not very well, but yes. I'm interested in watching the Astros because I'm cheering against them. It's the only reason I'd have any kind of interest in a Houston-Tampa series. And I do with the hope that Houston's going to lose. Atlanta, Dodgers, I don't care who wins. I just want to be entertained, which for the most part I have been. But yeah, an Atlanta-Tampa series is not exactly going to raise ratings, but it's a different world. I mean, if everyone just keeps looking at television ratings without looking at streaming, I mean, you can take almost anything now. Like you and I both know that the basketball ratings were not great. And a lot of people want to say, well, it's because they went too political. I'm sure it turned off some people. If you're really a fan, it's not going to turn you off.
Yeah, but so Mark Cuban has been getting in an internet argument, which is always a good thing, with Clay Travis, right? About this. And Travis brings up his streaming numbers to show that somehow he's more popular than the NBA, but based off of their TV numbers, but completely ignores their streaming numbers altogether.
Right.
So, I mean, if you throw in the streaming numbers and stuff like that, it's pretty much as popular as ever. It's just that we measure badly as to how things are going. So, and by the way, I would like to congratulate the citizens of Minneapolis on their 17th championship.
I'm sorry, the who of what?
The citizens of Minneapolis on their 17th NBA championship.
Of Minneapolis. Okay, what have I missed?
Well, I mean, the Lakers were saying that this is their 17th championship, and I mean, if the Los Angeles gets to keep the 5 that they won in Minneapolis should get the 12 after that, right?
Well, that makes some sense.
Who is the best? I'm on Bill Simmons' side with this to a certain extent. Who is the best player on those Minneapolis Lakers teams? Do you remember?
Isn't it George Mikan? And I'm not even sure.
George Mikan, yeah. He was there for the 5 championships. For the 5 championships. How many, George Mikan's number, we went through this, retired by the Lakers or not?
I think it's in a box or something, isn't it? With a bunch of other...
It's not officially retired by the Lakers. So if you're not claiming the player who led you to 4 of those 5 championships, you can't claim the championships. That's all I'm saying. So if you do, then congratulations to Minneapolis for winning their 17th. I'm a bitter Celtics fan, yes. But
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of being put down, Whitey Ford passed away.
Oh, Jesus. That is your worst one ever.
Yeah, I know. There was the only thing I could sort of think of really quickly, and I thought we were in a lull, so I just ran with it. I should have ran away from it, but that's just not my style.
Oh, man. That was not good.
No. Well, we try to bring some levity in death.
Quick, talk about Punky Brewster's boobs. Get us back on track.
Oh, well, yes.
No, all right. So before we go into that, can I say one more thing about baseball, and then we can go into the two Hall of Famers. Mm-hmm. I just want to bring up that tweet that I sent you earlier this week from Joel Sheehan.
Yes, please do.
So Joel Sheehan said earlier this week, at Joe Sheehan, at Joe_Sheehan on Twitter, for those of you guys who are following him, baseball has spent 50 years telling fans not about the greatness of its players, but that they're greedy and disloyal and cheaters and drug users. Literally my entire life, baseball has trashed the players to win labor and PR battles. Turns out that there's a cost. Yeah, no kidding. What league supports its players the best?
NBA,
right? What league has the biggest stars?
NBA.
Regardless of what the ratings may have up or down or however you want to measure them. There's no doubt if you took in the United States, the 50 biggest professional athletes in terms of Q rating, of the top 50, what are there? 30 of them NBA players?
I would think so.
You may have as many female tennis players as you have baseball players in that list.
Oh, shit. Wouldn't you? I would even think maybe more.
I mean...
Well, I mean...
They are...
Yeah, shit. I mean, you've got Serena and Naomi. Those two are pretty big names.
You got Venus still.
Oh, sure, but I mean, like those two, I think, are a bigger deal to most people than Mike Trout, who's still considered the best baseball player in the game over the last 6 years,
and who has played in exactly one more playoff game in his career than I have. I mean, that's not Mike Trout's fault. I mean, he's doing what he can, and baseball is not like basketball where one player can completely carry a team.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, honestly, at this rate, who's the face of baseball right now? Because Trout's maybe the best player, but is he the face?
No, he's really not. I mean, like, and when and I've got the Dodgers, as I was mentioning, like on the background. I'm not even. I mean, is Bellinger the face of it, or is Betts the face of it?
I mean, I'd say Betts, but I'm a Red Sox fan, and I'm glad Mookie got out of this Boston shenanigans that are going on. He doesn't deserve. The Red Sox don't deserve Mookie Betts at the moment. So, but Mookie plays with such joy and passion and heart, and just a good guy in general, and a heck of a bowler, by the way. But he to me is just a happy-go-lucky, smiling face, but he's not a good soundbite. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Baseball has self-destructed so much from when we were kids that I don't know what it needs to do to recover other than take Rob Manfred and bury him in the field somewhere. I'm not saying, like, kill him. I'm saying, like, put his feet in the field so he can't leave. He's just stuck there. Rob Manfred is, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Rob Manfred is the worst commissioner of my lifetime.
And it's not even close, which is scary to say, considering how many shitty commissioners there are, and currently are. You know, forget about Whitey Ford for a second. You sent me something else that was, and I'm sort of glad we sort of segued out of that. You sent me another great one where who was it is making a pitch for Roger Goodell is now for what he's done lately. He's making his Hall of Fame case. Like, really?
This is, and I can't. I say this with all due respect, due to the health concerns that he has been through. This is the NFL's lapdog, Chris Mortensen.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Mortensen said earlier this week, again, Chris Mortensen, the one who, as a Patriots fan, the conspiracy theory, the one who came up with the NFL's 12 out of 13 footballs have the wrong PSI, which wasn't true, and then refused to take it down for a year and a half, despite being repeatedly asked to, because he couldn't figure out how to take down a tweet. But he said, from a longtime team executive who says he echoes what many other team execs believe, at NFL commish, Roger Goodell has earned a fair share of criticism over the years, but his leadership in managing the pandemic crisis and social justice issues have been his Hall of Fame moment. Let's forget the first part of what he's supposedly done, because I don't know how amazing the commissioner is doing when the Titans and Patriots have everything going crazy. The Patriots had another player test positive today. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you heard that.
I did, yes.
But let's take the second half of that. How he dealt with social justice.
The only thing he did was admit that they screwed up.
After years of completely screwing up.
I mean, I'll give him at least a bit of credit for that. Not a lot of credit, but some. But certainly that this is going to be on the positive side of a Hall of Fame ledger. It's not. It's not even close. And the sad thing is he's going to get in. And I love, you said it perfectly when you sent that off to me. He says, like, and so I think, what did you say? And like, and here it is. And that's all you had to say.
And here we go.
Oh, here we go, yeah.
And here we go.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this. We couldn't, after Tagliabue got in, honestly, I'm trying to think. Tagliabue's a better commissioner than Goodell, but that's damning anyone with faint praise. Bowie Kuhn is still the most ridiculous commissioner of a non-racist variety in the Hall of Fame.
Isn't that sad? You have to put that caveat there, though.
Basically, the I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, it's so sad you have to put that caveat there.
Yeah, because Kennesaw Mountain Landis has his name might start with a K, but there are two other silent ones in there for him. So the idea that someone who screwed up Spygate, screwed up Deflategate, screwed up Ray Rice, screwed up Adrian Peterson, screwed up StarCaps. StarCaps, do you remember the StarCaps one?
No.
StarCaps is and again, I'm a Patriots fan who hates Goodell. StarCaps is the single biggest injustice that ever happened to any player in the league. The two Williams brothers not brothers, the two Williams defensive linemen for the Vikings, Kevin and I can't remember the other guy's name, first name right now. They asked the league about a supplement because the league was testing for stuff, and they said, hey, we need supplements to make sure we're staying within the rules. The NFL told them what supplement to take. They took the supplement, and the supplement had something banned in it that they were not aware of. The StarCap supplement that they asked the league about and got suspended 4 games for using the supplement they specifically asked the league about.
I didn't even know this at all.
Yeah, StarCaps is insane. It's completely insane that happened. And it was upheld, but it was the Vikings and nobody cared. Like, the way Goodell is such a wet blanket. He is the epitome of all the Ivy League failing up rich kids who don't actually know what the hell they're doing but have a degree behind their name. And they fail forward because everyone else judging them also is in the same situation. And the idea that just because the league has had to adjust to a pandemic, like all the other leagues have had to adjust to the pandemic, that he somehow has proven his mettle because most teams have managed to get 4 games and some have gotten 5 games in so far, is comical at the best. Farcical probably is a better word.
Yeah, especially
he's an awful commissioner.
Well, I was also going to say, like, especially considering that he's also had a few months to sort of, like, watch everyone else do it first.
Yeah, he had a head start. Baseball completely screwed it up. There's no question baseball screwed it up. Mm-hmm. Right? And the fact that we're going to have a playoffs where we may have the Houston Astros, the 29-31 Houston Astros, A, making the playoffs, but B, maybe winning the World Series, is ridiculous. It's not like the 7-9 Seahawks team that made it a few years ago. They beat the Saints in the first round, right?
Yeah, I remember.
That team, that was a rule. Someone wins the division, they get in. If the 29-31 Astros had won their division, okay, like weird stuff happens. But they were the 8th. They were the 7th. That's another thing. They were the 7th seed, right?
Were they 7 or 8?
They're 8. They were 8. Yeah, Minnesota was the number 1 seed. And Minnesota, again, as we discussed last week, hasn't won a playoff game since before the Red Sox won their first World Series. It was the 2004 playoffs. It was the last playoff game that the Twins won, which is insane. But, like, they had no idea what they were doing. And the NHL did okay. Their 24-team tournament ended up fine. I think the team that was supposed to have won, or at least one of the teams that should have won the whole thing.
Agreed.
And ultimately, it was fine. You know what I mean? They had to finish. They found 2 places. They did it. They finished. The NBA, I think, did the best of any of them. They had no positive tests in 123 days in the bubble.
Which is incredible.
It's ridiculous. Now, understandably, it's easier to do that with basketball because you got 15 players and 15 players, 5 coaches, and 8 staff, 10 staff per team. Let's just call it 10, right? So 10 and 5 and 15 is 30. 30 times the 22 teams, it's 600-something people. That's like 4 teams in the NFL. Because there's so many people. It's so much harder to take care of. But they managed to do it.
Yeah,
it just,
they did.
I don't know. Roger Goodell is 100% taking the Hall of Fame. They're going to have to come up with they'll come up with a 125th anniversary team and just have another, we're going to put 20 more people in because the Pro Football Hall of Fame has screwed over seniors in the system that they've just come up with. And during that, they're going to, somehow have 8 contributor spots just to make sure that he ends, and they'll have 9 people just to make sure, and Art Modell will be the 9th, just to make sure that Goodell gets in.
Well, as long as David Baker can knock on a door, he's happy.
David Baker, I can't wait to see the video of David Baker knocking on his own door.
It's because now that's what gets suggested on my YouTube now. Literally, is David Baker knocking montage.
Yeah, I know. But I have to say, montage is cool just to have. The knock on the door is cool to see the reaction of the people who actually get it. That's great. But yeah, no, I know the montage you talk about with just him knocking and knocking and knocking.
Ugh.
So I can't wait. What they'll do is they'll do a hologram of David Baker with typed in sound to knock on his own door ahead of time. So, or they'll do Tupac's. They'll do a hologram Tupac to do it.
So imagine I guess there may be all the Hall of Famers that he inducted. When David Baker dies, they can knock on his casket.
Oh God!
As they're lowering it, which they didn't do for Whitey Ford, who passed away at age 92.
I was going to say you could have gone right to Fred Dean at that point, but I will go right Whitey Ford first.
Well, he died while we were recording. I mean, we're another, what were the Mauve murderers or something? I
know that happened to Lute Olson. Who else passed away? There's somebody else who passed away while we were recording too. I can't remember who it was.
Another Hall of Famer. I remember that.
There's another Hall of Fame. I can't remember who it was. But yeah, Whitey Ford. Go ahead.
Yeah, Whitey Ford. I honestly didn't even realize he was still alive. Maybe because so many of his teammates have died so long ago. And I was looking at the loaded team that he had for 61 when he won the Cy Young, which, I mean, it feels sort of awful to say this, that he was actually one of the more undeserving Cy Young winners, that year. I mean, it was clearly an all-offense team, but he was pretty much the main pitcher that they still had. He was, to me, a little bit like Jack Morris. You knew that you had Whitey, you were going to do enough because you had enough firepower around you. Whitey wasn't going to lose you games, and he wasn't going to put you, deep in the hole, and he'd win you a few here and there.
Yeah, that 61 team had a 29-year-old Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris, of course, with his 61 asterisk home runs. Yogi Berra, Bobby Richardson, Elston Howard. Bill Skowron. Pete Boyer. That was a pretty damn good team.
No, absolutely. And he also played, before that, his entire career was with the Yankees, 6-time World Series winner, the ace of that staff. So as much as it might seem like I'm sort of denigrating his abilities, I'm not. I'm just trying to put it in the proper perspective, especially after we talked about Bob Gibson last week, who, with that amazing season he had in 68, and still had 9 losses despite having more shutouts than losses.
Yeah. So Whitey Ford that season was 25-4 with a 3.21 ERA.
Yeah, which isn't bad. I mean, it's not a bad ERA, but it's not something that's going to reflect a 25-4 record.
Right. I mean, his whip was higher than 2 of the other starters on his team. Mm-hmm. Bill Stafford and Ralph Terry both had better whips.
Yeah, and he also wasn't in the top 10 in B-WAR for pitchers that year. But again,
going back though, yeah, let's not denigrate his entire career.
No, and I shouldn't have
had.
Yeah, and I shouldn't have done that because this is also a 2-time ERA winner.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so clearly he was there, 2-time leader in innings pitched, which I think is a much bigger deal than I think people give that credit for. When you've got someone out there, leading your horses, that's so important. He did lead the league in WHIP, was it 58, and I'm just going now to his postseason record. MVP of the 61 World Series. So that same thing where I sort of mentioned maybe he wasn't the most deserving Cy Young winner. Well, he had a goose egg ERA in his 2 games against Cincinnati.
That's hard to beat that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and that's the same. We were just talking about like how I'm pissed off that baseball voters in almost every article they ever write will look at somebody and they'll never mention a playoff accomplishment. That's sort of like my big thing against Billy Wagner, is his playoff record is atrocious.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when David Ortiz comes up in a couple of years, or is it next year? Is it next year or the year after? I can't remember. I think it's 2022. When David Ortiz comes up, that's going to be the first thing they talk about, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's ultimately what got Jack Morris in the Hall of Fame.
It did, but it's so the exception and not the rule, and there's just not really a balance to it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just my personal take on it. So his overall postseason, so 10-8, 2.71 ERA, WHIP of 1.37. Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. And his number's been retired by the Yankees.
Yeah.
And he spent a bunch of time in the military as well.
That's true, too. That could have well cost him 300 wins. Yeah.
And, I mean, he's one of those people who barely snuck over the line for his Hall of Fame. He got 77.81% of the vote in his second time out, which is...
I got to take back what I just said. He wouldn't have. He missed 2 years. He wouldn't have got to 300 wins. It was 236 and 106.
Okay, but he would have gotten 250 certainly.
Yeah, definitely.
But Whitey Ford ended up just short in 73 and got inducted with Mickey Mantle in 74, which is probably just fine with him. But I mean, the voting numbers back then were just so crazily low too. Mm-hmm. For all the great players, it took forever. Like Yogi Berra's first time, he only got 67%. First year Yogi Berra's up, nobody got elected. And on that ballot, just in 71,
mm-hmm.
we have. I'm going to list the Hall of Famers on that ballot. You ready?
Sure.
Number 1, Yogi Berra. Excuse me. 1, Yogi Berra. 2, Early Wynn. 3, Ralph Kiner. 5, Enos Slaughter. 6, Johnny Mai. 7, Pee Wee Reese. 9, Ren Schoendienst. 11, George Kell. 13, Hal Neuheiser. 14, Phil Rizzuto. Probably shouldn't be a Hall of Famer, but fine.
Right.
15, Bob Lemon. 16, Duke Snyder. 18, Bobby Dorr. Bobby Dorr, in his 12th one, got 21.97% of the vote. 20, Nellie Fox. 21, 22, 23, 24, 12. And 26, Richie Ashburn. All those guys are Hall of Famers. All are on the 1971 ballot, and none of them got enough to get over the line.
I'm going to remember this conversation next time I complain about voters today in baseball.
I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. In what universe is Yogi Berra, probably no worse than the 5th best catcher of all time, not a Hall of Famer in the first ballot?
Well, I mean, even same with Early Wynn. He's a 300-game winner.
Yeah, and it took him 4 turns to get in. His first time in the ballot, he got 27.9 votes. First time to vote. He was tied with Johnny Vandermeer, who's still not in. The two of them both got 27.9.
My God.
By the way, number 4 on that list was Gil Hodges in 71. He got 50%.
I'm pretty sure I'm right on this. I think that Gil Hodges has the most votes of anyone, if you just sort of like count total of votes, not to be in the Hall of Fame.
That wouldn't surprise me. I can't guarantee you're right or wrong, but that would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong in that. I think it's just something when I was looking at it, like it's got to be him because he was pretty much. Do you have Hodges numbers in front of you?
Yeah.
All right. So what did he get in his first year?
I'm looking for his first year. So I got distracted by the fact the guy who finished. What number is the official that voted? The guy who finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th in that voting is some guy named Marty Marion, and I have no idea who the hell that is.
Former MVP with St. Louis. I want to say the Browns, the Octopus, great, all field no hit.
Oh, interesting. It was Marty Marion finished with 40% of the vote on that one. His first time, Gil Hodges started at 24.1.
Okay.
So Gil Hodges' percentages of vote: 24.1, 48.3, 50, 40.7, 57.4, 54.2, 51.9, 60.1, 58.5, 59.6, 56, 59.7, 60, 49.4, 63.4. Like, how do you go from 60 to 49 to 63?
I don't know. The only, at least now when somebody dips, we can kind of figure it out. Like when Kurt Schilling dipped,
Mm-hmm.
that was due to a lot of comments that he made towards the media, which, for all we know, he did that too. We know about things, due to social media. But again, it's something that, as you and I are working on creating our own little Hall of Fame, at the end of the day, it's people voting on people that they've mostly met.
True.
And if you're rubbed the wrong way, like that's going to hurt you. I mean, that's definitely Kurt Schilling should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame right now. He should be. I know why he's not.
It's just weird though, because like his last year in '83, Hodges finished 7th on the list with 63.4.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody ahead of him is in the Hall of Fame, and the next 4 guys behind him are in there too. Brooks Robinson, Juan Marichal, Harmon Killebrew, Louis Aparicio, Hoyt Wilhelm, Don Drysdale, then Hodges, then Nellie Fox, Billy Williams, Red Schoendienst, Jim Bunning. And then further down the list, Orlando Cepeda, Bill Mazeroski, and Joe Torre. Now, Torre's in as a manager. But, like, all those guys are in already. And Hodges is still sitting there.
And it's not like the voters back then were looking at advanced metrics like we do now. That didn't exist. That was the slugger of one of the marquee teams. Like that should be enough. Yeah,
should have been back then, but it wasn't. I'm not sure we got to Gil Hodges when we're talking Whitey Ford, but sorry.
No, it's actually not a bad segue. Let's see how this segue works, because we're talking about cantankerous Hall of Fame voters. And a cantankerous Hall of Fame influencer who's been on many committees and a Hall of Famer himself passed away. Not the greatest opening I wanted to give for someone who I'm going to say is the best second baseman in the last 75 years, Joe Morgan.
I agree with that statement, that Joe Morgan is probably the best second baseman in the last. I mean, you could probably make an argument all time, but it's hard to compare the very dead ball era from so long ago to now. So I will give you, he's probably the greatest. Oh, and by the way, just to point that out, Joe Morgan got in his first ballot with only 83% of the vote. The greatest second baseman of the last 75 years only got 83% of the vote his first time.
Right. So, like, who's the 17% that's thinking, nah.
Yeah. I don't know what to say.
No, exactly. I
mean, Joe Morgan is, certainly one of the greatest players of all time. I mean, the other second baseman you're putting in his orbit, I guess, are who? Ernie Banks, Robbie Alomar is, I'd say, certainly a step below, but it's someone you'd put up there as for great second baseman. But, like, who else would there be?
There isn't one in the last little while. I honestly don't think so.
I mean, the last great second baseman who comes to mind is Craig Biggio. And he was somebody who had a lot of trouble in the Hall of Fame. Had he not had 3,000 hits, he might still be waiting.
Didn't, though, he start off as a catcher?
He did.
Yeah.
And he played outfield for a little bit, too.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
Morgan, I think what really impresses me about Morgan's career is just how he just kept slowly building into becoming great. when Houston traded him to Cincinnati, after the 71 season, there's no way they probably anticipate, okay, well, we're letting go a pretty good player. But then what he did as a Red, oh my God. So I'm bringing that up now. So 4 on-base percentage titles in the 70s, 2 MVPs.
Before anyone knew that was important. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, true. No, exactly. Yeah, because the first time he won, he led the league in OBP. So he had a 417 against a 292 batting average, which is still fantastic, but especially in 72 because they the live ball hadn't really come back yet. But you're right. No one was looking at that. But 75 season, his first MVP season, on-base percentage of 466. 132 walks, batting .327. And you don't think of Morgan as a power guy, but there was 420 home run seasons for the Reds. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for a second baseman in the 70s. That's very, very good. He brought you the speed, he brought you the good glove, he had a bit of power when you might need it, and he got on base. And he was a leader of that team.
Yeah, do you know why the Astros traded him?
No.
So, Joe got very involved in the community down in Houston, and he got in trouble with Harry the Hat Walker, who was a manager at the time, who Joe believed was a racist. And Walker said that Morgan was selfish, moody, and a troublemaker. So he got traded. Here's the trade that sent him to Cincinnati. So it was Joe Morgan, outfielder Ed Armbrister, outfielder Cesar Geronimo, one of the great names of baseball history, pitcher Jack Billingham, and infielder Dennis Menke, the Cincinnati Reds, for second baseman Tommy Helms, first baseman Lee May, and utility man Jimmy Stewart. Oh, I can't believe I was traded. That's a little bad Jimmy Stewart impression. Yeah. So the best player in that was Morgan, certainly. You can make an argument that the second best player in that was Cesar Geronimo, although Lee May was a pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
But yeah, that was. He was unhappy being traded because his wife was pregnant at the time, but with their second kid. But I think it worked out okay for him ultimately.
I didn't know that story, but that ties in with a whole lot of things. Joe Morgan is a very principled individual, and
agreed.
And where I was sort of going for those who aren't sure when I said sort of a cantankerous individual when it comes to Hall of Fame. Morgan's has been on many Hall of Fame committees, on senior committees. Morgan is very, very anti all the PED guys, and like a lot of people of his generation. But Morgan is very vocal about it, or was very vocal about it, and certainly had a lot of influence in those circles. Yeah,
100%. I agree with that.
Yeah, and it's not so much that I don't respect that position. I totally do. But, you and I think we're of the same belief that baseball allowed that to happen. And my Mason-Dixon line is 2004, when baseball collectively agreed.
Yeah. I think after the testing period, when everything it's no longer the Wild West, if you get caught after that, that's on you. Which is why, even though, again, I'm a Red Sox fan, even though David Ortiz was rumored to have been one of the 106 players who tested positive, which sucks for Ortiz. If he did, that it's entirely possible because he was taking supplements from Dominican Republic, so who knows what the hell was with those. And he said so at the time. But if he did test positive, well, that sucks for him, and that sucks that he was doing that, or he should have paid more attention to supplements or whatever. At a time when nobody really cared. But if he didn't, because it was him and A-Rod's names got leaked and nobody else. And A-Rod ultimately was proven to be a cheater, which is going to be interesting when he comes up in a couple of years.
Oh my God!
But how do you disprove a negative? How do you disprove you're not on his list when nobody's supposed to see it, right? So I have I give Ortiz has been tested sometimes with that and never tested positive. Manny Ramirez, another guy near and dear to my heart. If he never gets in, I completely understand why. Tested positive twice. Was it twice or 3 times? There's at least twice. One I never remember was for that.
Well, I know he got I know he got suspended 100 games, so at least twice.
At least twice, yeah, because that second one was for the pregnancy hormone drug. That's a masking agent.
But I didn't have a kid, so I was negative.
So, but no, I agree. That's my dividing line as well. So, and let's be honest, the players during Joe Morgan's era weren't all clean either.
No, God, no.
Greenies were rampant. They were literally in dugouts like jelly bean bowls.
Oh, Hank Aaron was on that like crazy.
Yeah, tons of people were on that like crazy. Just think about it. I mean, think about the toll that, again, people are like, oh, athletes, whatever. Think about having to play the same game every single day, essentially, for 4 months. Mm-hmm. And you're like 38 years old. It's gonna hurt. And yet people are requiring you because a lot of this is free agency or early free agency, or where you're basically tied to your team. That if you can't perform, you're going to get Wally pipped, and the next Lou Gehrig's coming in, you basically lose your job. So if there's someone giving you an upper to get you ready to go that day, you're going to take it.
No,
right?
It's very true.
Particularly in the 70s, which is the decade without consequences, except for Richard Nixon. Like, nobody knew any better about anything in the 70s. And then the AIDS crisis brought everyone back down to earth. So I completely respect Morgan's principles on that. And you guys and I have a dividing line on that. I also believe that there are multiple players who use steroids in the Hall of Fame already. And I also believe that it's impossible for me to keep Mark McGwire out if Bud Selig is in.
No, I totally agree with you.
And Tony La Russa is in.
Yep. And I think one of those names you might be referring to might rhyme with Pike Miazza.
Yes, another one might rhyme with Devon Rodriguez. And another one, I'm going way back, and I have no necessary evidence for this, but it would not shock me if Ricky Henderson would be. Towards the end of his career, he went from a skinny guy to a super muscular guy. But nobody really talked about it. He was an old, super muscular dude towards the end of his career. Back when he couldn't remember if he played with John Olerud or not.
Of course, he might not even known what locker he was going into, and he might have walked into Canseco's a few times. This looks like something good for Ricky.
It's amazing that Jose Canseco is essentially the only honest man in this whole thing.
Okay.
Think about it.
One thing I thought I might do for the site one time is just, here are the following people who are Eskimo brothers. And then it's kind of a weird list when you think about it. Like Howard Stern and Mike Tyson.
What's that? What are Eskimo brothers?
Oh, Eskimo brothers? Oh, that's when you've been with the same woman.
Oh, so Jason Momoa and Lenny Kravitz.
Yes.
Which is weird because the three of them all hang out.
Well, some couples can handle that. I don't know that I could, but I'm very insecure and I don't look like Jason Momoa.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And I'm not as cool as Lenny Kravitz.
I've never heard the term Eskimo brother.
Admittedly, that's something I only learned from the high school kids who worked for me. And I said, what the hell is that? And they sort of educated this old dude. But then it sort of got me thinking about some of the weird ones and the celebrity ones. I think the weirdest one is Tyson and Howard Stern. Both with Robin Givens.
The first one that comes to mind for me is Arthur Miller and John F. Kennedy.
Oh, that's a good one. See, because this whole thing was thinking when we brought up Canseco, I was thinking because I'm working on the top 50 Bulls, Chicago Bulls. So Jose Canseco and Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, I mean that's not surprising.
I suppose it's not, but there's like in a transaction like that, who gave a disease to who?
I think it might be Monty Burns syndrome, where they all have all the diseases already.
Oh God, I don't know how to segue out of this one.
How do we transition back to that?
I don't know.
I will say this, and I brought this up too this week, that this year started with Don Larson died on January 1st.
Oh yes,
but we've lost Al Kaline, Tom Seaver, Lou Brock, Bob Gibson, Whitey Ford, and Joe Morgan in essentially since May. Kaline died, I think, May 15th, somewhere around there. That, first of all, the dispersal draft in that Iowa cornfield for at the end of the season is going to be ridiculous.
You beat me to that. I was just going to say something about that. Damn it.
Sorry, man.
No, it's all good.
But secondly, like that team, I mean, just think of that rotations. Gibson 1, Seaver 2, Ford 3, Larson 4.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's even better than Maddox, Glavin, Smoltz, and Steve Avery.
Oh God!
Going back to our conversation about the fourth person on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, exactly. And Avery had a couple pretty good years too.
He did, but just in comparison to the other three who were first ballot Hall of Famers. So.
Yeah, it's not like he's a Cooper Manning.
No, Cooper Manning had like a spinal stenosis issue where his bones of his back basically were fusing around his spine, so if he got hit, he might die.
Yeah, that would make you stop playing football.
I'm willing to give him a break on that one.
All right, I get that.
So, and believe me, I don't like the Mannings at all.
No,
but
I
I'm
guess
giving
you wouldn't.
Cooper a pass.
Fair enough. Should we go to the third death, or should we look at just something maybe a little bit more fun with the basketball?
Let's just get that one out of the way quickly.
Okay. Yeah.
Just so we can be done.
Yeah. So Fred Dean passed away. Former star linebacker at Louisiana Tech, but converted to defensive end. So I was reading about this with him. 5 Hall of Fames he's in. So Louisiana Tech, San Diego Chargers, San Francisco 49ers, college football, pro football. Wow.
But other than that, what did he do?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. The crazy thing is, too, I was thinking about this. I don't know if there's any other football player that's been in like 5 major Halls of Fame like that. And it's not like there wouldn't be some worthy. Just there's some NFL teams, as you and I have discussed, that don't even have Hall of Fames.
Yeah.
Because my first thought was
Charles Haley's a thought that comes to mind, but the Cowboys only have a Ring of Honor.
Right. That was the first name I came up with because I looked that up. Like, okay, well, it's got to be Haley. And, well, I guess technically no. That's the only one I looked up. The other thing, so when I was looking at that is...
another one just came to me. Nick Buonaconti might be one.
Oh, okay.
Because I think both the Patriots, and this is off the top of my head, but he's in the Patriots Hall of Fame. The Dolphins have a Hall of Fame? I think they do.
They do, yes.
Yeah, so then he'd be probably in their Hall of Fame because he's a captain of that no-name defense. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know about the other two. I don't know where he went to college. But at least he's somebody who has a chance. Because you have to think of a player who's good enough on 2 teams, at least. And then still good enough in college. And so like Mike Haynes might be another one.
Mm-hmm.
Because their Patriots had really good players that they got rid of for a while. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, sorry. What were you saying?
Well, no, just sticking with that, though. I mean, like, even if you're a really good college player, how many great college players become Pro Football Hall of Famers, but they don't qualify for the College Hall because they were never an All-American?
Yeah, that's also true.
or they didn't finish school, and some of the like not every athletic Hall of Fame in the NCAA says that you've got to finish, but some do.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think that might be something I might just look for next week, just to see that. But yeah, I was going to say that Dean was like the perfect specimen for just like the ultimate pass rusher, like a specialized pass rusher for his day. I don't know if he was one of the first ones, but certainly he comes to mind when it comes to just specialized pass rusher.
Yeah, I would say that I was listening to his Hall of Fame induction speech, or the one that Eddie DeBartolo gave him, or his whatever speech, and Eddie DeBartolo brought up that Dean was the first of because he technically was a defensive end for the 49ers at least. If not for I can't honestly say I remember his time with the Chargers that well, but I do remember his time with the 49ers. But he was kind of that first edge holding pass rusher. Guess what the Patriots, when Willie McGinnis was around, called the elephant position, where you held your space for a second, if need be on the run, but other than that, you were just supposed to rush upfield. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's why they call the elephant, because you're just either standing still or running people over.
Right.
And that he was the one who brought the role that Andre Tippett, who was inducted the same year Dean was, and a few others names that he brought up, I can't remember them all off the top of my head, that he was the one who kind of set the standard for them. And that makes some sense. He was a Defensive Player of the Year in '81, 2-time Super Bowl champ, 2-time first team All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler. Yeah, an absolutely incredible player, and very sadly, passed from COVID. So,
at age 68.
Yeah, only 68.
Yeah, I think.
And he had one career interception. Okay. One career interception.
Yeah. If that sort of like didn't talk about his specialization, I think it's that 81 season that really got him inducted, because he was traded early in the season from San Diego to San Francisco, and there was a lot of the talk like, okay, here's our final piece of the puzzle, and then you do it, and then you win. It's a great look on a resume.
It is,
and sometimes it's not always necessarily what you do; it's what the narrative around you can be told. And the narrative of Fred Dean, because statistically, even if you just go with some of the most basic advanced analytics like approximate value, he's on that lower tier of Pro Football Hall of Famers, but he was at the forefront of specialization.
Mm-hmm.
So RIP to Fred Dean. But sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's certain positions, though, where if you're doing your job, you're just not going to get the stats.
Right.
And I know that you specialize pass rusher and everything like that, but there are just like certain things that you can't necessarily measure very well, particularly in football.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly feel when it comes to line play in general, I don't necessarily believe that the analytics are necessarily doing a good job of showing what's actually going on.
It's very hard. It's certainly very hard. It's certainly not as simple, or not simple, because baseball analytics are very confusing to me. I'm glad somebody sort of like sorts it all out. But, well, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm not wording it very well.
I am.
I'm glad you do. So, hopefully the people listening do. God damn it.
But before we go to the other stuff, can I just run through a few more Hall of Famers and stuff who passed away this week, and then we'll be done with it for the evening?
Absolutely.
Before we move on to the last topic?
Yes.
Okay. So we had a couple Hall of Famers pass away this week outside of this. So we had Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, or Professional Wrestling Hall of Famer Len Rossi passed away at the age of 91. He was mostly involved in the National Wrestling Alliance, 58 to 72. He was a 14-time NWA World Tag Team Champion. and one of the most popular stars in the history of the NWA. I know this is more your time period, but he passed away at the age of 91.
I'm not that familiar with his work, but I did read a couple of bits on him this week.
Yeah. We also lost Greg Strobel, who's also in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, from 1995 to 98, head coach at Lehigh University, which is one of the top wrestling programs in the country. He passed away at the age of only 68. He's somebody else. He's a National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Oregon State University Hall of Fame, and Oregon Sports Hall of Fame, which isn't too bad for a guy who coached in Pennsylvania. But he passed away at 68 earlier this week. We also had thoroughbred trainer Gary F. Jones passed away at 76. He's in the Horse Racing Hall of Fame since he got elected in 2014. He's got more ridiculously important wins than you can imagine. Like there's more information on his major racing wins on Wikipedia than there is on his life. It's longer than that. But he passed away on the 11th earlier this week. Back to football, we had AFL player Ken Rice passed away. He was 61 to 67. He was the AFL All-Star in 61. But he passed away at the age of 77. I'm sorry, take that back. He passed away at the age of 81 in Carlton, Georgia earlier this week. We had a name that you may remember, baseball executive Jimmy Lee Solomon. Do you remember him?
I don't.
He was the vice president of operations for MLB from 2005-2010. He was one of the big important people in the development of the league and transitioning towards the end of Bud Selig's tenure. He was on TV a decent amount, but he passed away suddenly at the age of 64 earlier this week. But someone who really led baseball in the mid-2000s as one of the major executives. And three last ones here. Chicago punk band player Kedzie, of mostly known for working Naked Ray Gun. I don't know if you are familiar with them that much. They're pretty popular around here. But he passed away of cancer at the age of only 58 earlier this week. We also lost Brian Locking, one of the bassists of the Shadows for Cliff Richard. Passed away at the age of 81 in Wales earlier this week.
He lives on the island here, Cliff Richard?
Or does he?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I had no idea. I had no idea what happened to Cliff Richard.
Well, he's on this island, and he had his birthday party at a bar in town that I absolutely detest because the beer is $12 and it's this imported Portuguese swill. But that bar just burned down. I had nothing to do with it. The two things are completely unrelated. I just thought I'd bring that up.
I can understand upset drinkers, though, burning down the bar. So continue.
No, that's it. That's all I got.
Oh, okay. Well, Brian Locking passed away he had Bell's palsy and passed away at the age of 81 earlier this week. And finally, a complete footnote in music history. AC/DC's original bassist, like when they were first hanging out together, way back in 1974, the original bassist for, I believe, 3 to 4 weeks, Paul Matters passed away. And here's the great thing about Paul Matters. Paul Matters was involved in a whole bunch of bands before, and he started playing with the AC/DC and got in lots of fights with the Young Brothers, and Bon Scott fired him. And in response, the legendary Paul Matters quit music altogether and lived the rest of his life on disability in Australia. Never holding down a job.
So if he would have stayed in the band, at least for when they recorded Back in Black, would the byline have been when he passed away? Back in Black, Paul lives mattered. No. Wow, that was inventive. It was a stretch, but it was inventive. I give you credit for that one. It wasn't one of my best ones ever. I was trying to think of something really clever off the top of my head, That was the best I came up with.
Yeah, sometimes you got to workshop stuff. So you did a pretty good job for first draft.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, all right. So we're going to go to now that we've got all the dead people out of the way.
Yeah.
Do you want to go to something a little more fun with the
yes, my favorite
playoffs?
My favorite part. Yes, the 2019-2020 season is over, and before we sort of like go into what I like to call the elevator up, elevator down section, like who really helped themselves in the basketball playoffs for their Hall of Fame career. Just, kudos to all of those guys who, and I know, like, yes, they're all millionaires and some are approaching being a billionaire. Being in a bubble for as long as you are, like, what was it, 85 days, which I believe from beginning to end for the Lakers and the Heat under...
No, it was 123 days.
It was 123.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So even much longer. I don't know where I got the number 85 from.
That might have been the length of the season, but they had training camp and stuff ahead of time.
Oh, okay. All right. That's probably it. So just for them to sort of do that, and especially, and I know a lot of people like to rag on LeBron James, when you're that focused and when you're that determined in that type of environment that, let's be honest, none of us can really picture. I mean, we've all been sort of quarantined, but not like this. I don't care what your bank account says. That's pretty damn impressive to still want to win. I mean, you and I both watched Tuukka Rask of the Boston Bruins. I know it's a different sport. Just say, and he cracked. He pretty much cracked under it. I mean, I'm sure there was other things going on in his life.
Yeah, from what I heard about that, though, it hasn't come out, but there was a health issue with one of his kids.
Okay, which is that takes precedent over everything. But it's still a lot
of... I think the problem people had with Rask was a couple days after, when it was all over, he was out golfing while he was still playing.
So I didn't know that. I think... Because, the thing that what he said was, it just doesn't feel like a game. Like, okay, and I get that, but maybe that's not what your teammates need to hear or want to hear right now. And having said that, I mean, like, if it's about your kids, fine. And, like, whatever it is, it's not easy. And I don't care what your bank account says. I mean, you're going home to a lot still. This was not an easy situation for any of these players, NBA, NHL, and my hat's off to all of you, and especially to the Lakers and the Heat. Mm-hmm. So what we wanted to do right now is who benefited the most from their performance. And you and I got, I think it's 1A, 1B. And when you went... Go ahead.
So, but before we get that, I just want to say, did you hear what Danny Green said as he ran down the tunnel after the championship?
No. What do you say?
We're free! That was his reaction when the championship, that he could go home. Anyway, continue.
I thought his reaction was, oh, look at all these bricks. I can build a house.
Well, it's still better than J.R. Smith's reaction, where they win the championship. And usually, like, the owner or the coach or the best player grabs the trophy first. No. It's J.R. Smith who played 40 seconds in the final. So.
Oh, God. J.R. Smith. There's got to be a 30 for 30 on just him. So, like, 1A, 1B. I feel stronger about one of these players than the other. Two Los Angeles Lakers, who I think benefited the most, is Dwight Howard, Rajon Rondo. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Absolutely, 100%. Who would you say did themselves more favors?
Howard.
Really?
Yeah, and the reason I say that is I think Dwight Howard already was a basketball Hall of Famer, but and again, I talked to him earlier about the narrative, and the narrative on Dwight Howard has taken a shit kicking since 2013. In his first lone year in Los Angeles, Kobe pretty much ran him out of town. In Houston, he got run out of town there. In Charlotte, they pretty much they cheered when he left. I also forgot about Atlanta. They did the same thing there. Washington, his 9 games that season last year was such a disaster on the court and off of it. Him going through, and I won't sort of like go back to some of the rumors that sort of plagued him and the accusations. That should be irrelevant these days. It's not, like in his circle, I'm sure, but. For our purposes, he almost looked untouchable. And people, it seemed so long ago. But before the season started, there was serious doubt whether anyone was going to sign him at all.
Agreed.
And all Dwight had to do, because the first half of his career, he was the best center in the league, period. He was. And when you're the best player at a position in the NBA for more than 1 year, and you were considered the best defensive player, you're a Hall of Famer. That's where the bar is at. I mean, it's a little lower than some halls, certainly lower than the Pro Football Hall, but nevertheless, he cleared that in my mind. But the narrative around him changed to worst teammate ever. Well, all he had to do there was just do his job, follow instructions, and he did it well. So the narrative has now changed on him, and he needed this. He needed a year where he could prove that I'm okay not being the best player on this team. I'm okay coming off the bench. What's my role, coach? Okay, I'm going to go out and do it. And he did it well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's sort of why I say it helps Howard more. Because, I think he was going to get in, but now I think he's back on that first ballot Hall of Fame, which he probably was anyway. But he needed this narrative change. He needed it really badly.
Okay. So, I mean, particularly with how low the bar is for the basketball hall comparatively to other sports, my reason for being surprised is I agree with you. I think even with all the junk attached to him, Howard is probably already going to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think Rajon Rondo necessarily was.
Right. And I don't know that he necessarily still is.
Agreed. But he's won one with the championship with the Celtics. He's won one with the Lakers 12 years apart. The two most storied franchises. Now, in between, he spent time in New Orleans and Sacramento, and he had a cup of coffee here with the Bulls. And there are other places I'm probably forgetting because he was all over the place, and which is going to hurt him going on. But the fact that he was an important part of two championship teams 12 years apart has to mean something.
You know, it really should. And I think, you know this better than I. I thought, like, during the 2008 Celtics championship, when I was watching that, and there was all the talk of the Big Three, I thought, personally, it was the Big Four, and Rondo was better than two of them in that championship run. Because Rondo was electric in those finals.
He was. Like, that's the thing about Rondo, though. Rondo has... Rajon Rondo's playoff Rondo or national game Rondo.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Rondo's Thursday night in Milwaukee is not a Hall of Fame player. He is probably the fourth guy off your bench. So that is one of the issues that he has. Playoff Rondo is awesome to watch. Regular season Rondo, it depends on who he's playing. And that's plagued his entire career. So I personally... Thinking back on that team, I mean, my love for Paul Pierce is pretty much all-encompassing. So I'm presuming that you're putting Garnett 1, Rondo 2. So I have trouble with that, but I don't know if they win the championship with any of that starting five, honestly. Like, even Kendrick Perkins, who they had to throw a lob into at the beginning of the game just so he'd be engaged, they don't win that championship without his, like, intensity backing up Garnett and defense and rebounding and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Although Kendrick Perkins will never be a Hall of Famer. So it's hard for me to say.
Right.
But I have no trouble saying that there's a Big Four with that team and Kendrick Perkins as the enforcer who they could afford to lose as opposed to with Garnett. Mm-hmm. So...
Now,
I don't know.
Do you know what Rondo's contract status is? Like, is he signed for the Lakers for next year?
I actually don't know. I can look that up.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm just thinking, like, while you're doing that, I mean, Rondo just, and he did have a really good game 5, if I remember correctly. It was at 1/2. It was a game 4. I forget. So, yeah, Rondo's not it's another tick in the box that really does help. And when they put everything together, I just don't know that it's going to be enough for him. I thought the person, though, like, overall, who has taken another big step was on Miami, and that's Jimmy Butler.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, Jimmy Butler went from. Oh, just by the way, here's your answer on Rondo. Rondo had another option, which was the minimum for him next season, based on his status, which was $2,692,991, but he opted out 2 days ago.
Oh.
So he is now a free agent.
Interesting.
So he made $2.5 million in a weird number. $2,564,753.
How many cents?
Yeah. So he's making us, because the number isn't changing, yet he got a 5% bump, because that's what usually happens with 10-year salaries of 10-year players in the league. But if he stayed, but he opted out of it, hopes he's getting something better. But because of the way the league happened, they're keeping that number the same. So he may be costing himself like $75,000 or something.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's worth, at this point in his career, it's worth it to him to try and get a bigger contract someplace else for $75,000. I mean, he's not Le'Veon Bell sitting for when he was insulted with $14 million. So, yeah, so he's a free agent to answer that question.
Okay. So Jimmy Butler, again, I keep going back to narrative, but it matters so much. They were using Butler in the same sentence as LeBron.
Well, that Game 5 made Jimmy Butler's entire career. He went head-to-head with LeBron. LeBron was brilliant in Game 5. Absolutely brilliant. And Jimmy Butler's like, I got you, boy.
Mm-hmm.
And was just as good, if not better. Now, the difference between LeBron and Jimmy Butler's 5 years younger than LeBron. Jimmy Butler was exhausted in Game 6. LeBron was like, oh, we got a Game 6? That's fine.
You know, I think, too, like, as much as I was so impressed with what Butler did in Game 5, like, right at the end, I'm sort of, like, watching, like, him, like, all his body language, I knew if I was still gambling, which I don't anymore, but I would have laid everything on the Lakers and the spread.
Yeah.
Because they had nothing left to give. But Butler had a really good year. He's an interesting character, but that fifth All-Star, that certainly helps. One guy I want to ask you about, and I think he's already cemented his place even though he's very, very young, I think only 25 or 26, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's two-time MVP now, and nobody who's been a two-time MVP is going to be passed over for the Hall of Fame. It just doesn't happen. It barely happens if you're a one-time MVP. It's never happened. We'll see what happens with Derrick Rose.
Yeah, Derrick Rose is going to be the first one, and that just sucks for Rose because before he blew out his knee, he was as dynamic a player, a point guard, as this league had ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I don't think I'm going to be interested to see what happens with the Bucks in general. I mean, I think at this point, if Giannis retired, he's probably a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's ahead of Yao Ming in terms of impact, and Yao's in. So I think he's probably a Hall of Famer.
Right.
I just don't... The way they lost was very strange. I guess this Miami team, I saw them when playing the Celtics. This Miami team is just tough as nails. But I don't... Yeah, I mean, obviously winning a second MVP, he's going to get in anyway. I don't know necessarily if the playoffs enhanced his reputation in any way, however.
Well, and that's what I think I'm more going there, because I also look at, going back, you mentioned Bill Simmons earlier, and his book of basketball, he had like tiers in the Hall of Fame, and I really like that idea, and I sort of incorporated that with another show I did a long time ago with my buddy Dave, and we just sort of like called it like the Hall of Fame party, like the best club in the room. Like maybe now they'll let Dwight Howard just like at least say hi to the cool kids.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. Can I bring up somebody else in these playoffs for you?
Yeah.
How about someone who has played LeBron James a modern record of 31 times in the finals or in the playoffs? Andre Iguodala.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So, by the way, the record for most games played against each other in playoffs is 34 between Bill Russell and Jerry West. So Iguodala and LeBron have played 31 times, almost all of them in the finals, which is crazy, or a large portion are in the finals. So, where do you follow Andre Iguodala as a Hall of Famer?
Well, I'll quote Andre Iguodala when he was asked that. He says he's not. I think it's interesting to hear a basketball player being modest. I don't think that he is, but I think he's a lot more than giving himself credit for with just that one statement. Because it was a very blunt answer. No, I'm not. But Iguodala is someone who, when he's eligible, he'll get a top 20 rank out of me.
I'd imagine. I mean, he was an important part. He was really good with the Sixers. He was the second AI after Iverson left, right?
Yep.
And then a major part of that Golden State run.
He won a Finals MVP. I mean, who went?
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever see. Well, maybe we will. I just can't imagine seeing a six-man bench player ever winning a Finals MVP. But then I never understood sometimes the way teams will use a bench player. Like when James Harden won Sixth Man of the Year with the Oklahoma City. Like, okay, yeah, you're coming off the bench, but you're still averaging like 34 minutes.
Yeah. Well, did Vinny the Microwave Johnson win MVP for a Finals once? Am I making that up?
I don't believe so. I mean, I could be wrong on that, but I'm near positive. Iguodala, like I just remember reading that over and over that he was the first Finals MVP not to be a starter.
You know, I think that the Finals MVPs were Dumars and maybe a Mark Aguirre, and it wasn't Isaiah Thomas. I just remember like Thomas wasn't one, so that may have been the situation. So anyway, I'm mixing him up with Vinny. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so I mean, Iguodala, I think he's a phenomenal player. If he ever got into the Hall, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I don't think his name's going to come up. I really don't.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How about your opinion of? Did anyone move down? Like, let's say James Harden, Westbrook, Chris Paul.
No, because all three of those guys are in that same level they were for me. None of them were really favored to win it, and they've already done enough.
Yeah,
where they're already over that threshold, and they weren't sort of older like Howard and Rondo are, who are running out of time. And Howard, again, it was all about reputation, I think. Because he acted his way, he acted a fool his way out of being a first ballot, and that shit matters. Ask Chris Bosh how pissed off he is.
Yeah. How about on the coaching side? What does this do for Eric Spoelstra?
I was just gonna say huge.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's funny too because you don't always think of like I didn't especially like back then, but like managing egos. And managing someone who is, I mean, again, people can say what they want about LeBron. A lot of people will say he's stupid. I think he's massively intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he's an on-court leader, and he's essentially, he's a de facto coach. And for Spoelstra to have all of that put together, ride unbelievable pressure, and then still remain competitive and still be a coach that players want to go to. And what he did here, I think that matters. This is also why I maintain that for all coaches and managers of the year should not be given for just the regular season. It should always be done for a combination, more than anything else. I believe that's stronger than an MVP because you already have your Finals MVP or your playoff MVP, World Series MVP, what have you. But I mean, I just look back at the Raptors. Sam Mitchell. Was it Sam Mitchell? Yeah. Won Coach of the Year and then got swept out and was fired.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I hate to say it, but justifiably so. So I love that guy.
But Spoelstra in general, I mean, he won a championship in 06 as an assistant on that team.
Mm-hmm.
And then he won the championship in, what was the most recent one?
Well, he was
he won two. He won two in 2012 and 2013. He won the back-to-back one.
Yeah,
Let's remember the years.
Mm-hmm.
Years are passing quickly, my friend. It's hard to remember them all. but I mean, Brad Stevens is widely considered to be one of the best coaches in basketball, and he coached circles around him in that series. Absolute circles around him in that series. And I don't know how important this necessarily is, but he's the first Asian American head coach in any of the four major sports.
It's one of those things that shouldn't matter a lick, but it does, and it helps him.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things I don't even think of Spoelstra as. I mean, he's not somebody you're like, oh, that because he's Filipino.
Right.
That he's not what most white people would think be typically Asian looking, comparatively. And it never even occurred to me he was Asian American until somebody brought it up. But, yeah, it's interesting. I think Spoelstra was probably a Hall of Famer. He has 2 championships already. I think he was probably a Hall of Famer as his. But I think bringing this Miami team to the championship and taking that Lakers team with 2 pantheon guys. I mean, LeBron is at the very tippy top of the pyramid. And by the time he's done, Anthony Davis is going to at least be on level 3, pushing to level 2, in my opinion, on the pyramid.
Absolutely.
And pushing that team with a 30-year-old Jimmy Butler and 2 white dudes shooting long-distance threes as your main offense. That and I don't want to underrate Bam Adebayo, who is also very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Without Goran Dragic, who's one of the really great point guards in the league, the guy I've always wanted on my team for years, is quite an accomplishment. I know it's weird to say something about someone who lost, but he took that team legitimately as far as he could possibly go.
Yeah, no,
you saw in Game 6, they were out of gas. They had nothing left.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Spoelstra is, and I was thinking about this. I've been thinking about this for a while. I just for him to have done what he did with the characters involved. I think if anyone now might be hurt in terms of coaching and whatnot, is someone who I think might be a Hall of Famer anyway, is Doc Rivers.
Yeah, that was the next one I was going to bring up.
Yeah,
he leads NBA history for most 3-1 series leads lost.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he's lost. No, to be fair, one of them he shouldn't have had a 3-1 series lead. That was the Orlando team where Tracy McGrady said it was great to be in the second round of playoffs, and then they didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
But that team was like a 7 seed and lost to 2, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I mean, he has more 3-1 collapses. I think in the history of the NBA, there are only 14, and he's got like 4 of them.
The Clippers never made the conference final yet either, did they?
I'm sorry, who?
The Clippers never have been in the conference final.
The Clippers, in their history now, have had 9 chances, I believe, to if they win a game, they go to the conference finals. They've lost all 9.
Okay. So you've got Rivers at the helm of that with some really talented players. At some point, there's a few fingers pointing back in your direction. I'm cheering for Doc Rivers. I like everything about him, but there was clearly there's an asterisk now. Oh, actually, speaking of asterisks, do you consider this season an asterisk? I don't.
No,
okay.
100% no.
All right. Yeah, so I feel that way about all the sports. Same with baseball, unless Houston wins.
All I have to say about Doc Rivers is Doc Rivers was born just completely incapable of actually having normal speech. I mean, I'm shouting right now. It's amazing how hard it is. It's hard to coach the NBA and still have a voice. I can't wait for next year when he's yelling at Embiid for not running up the court because he's out of shape for the 6th consecutive season. It's going to be awful. I worry about his blood pressure. All right, that hurt my throat. I can't do it anymore.
Nice. But he has put himself in in a great position to rebound. So we'll see what happens. And a very similar team in a way.
If he can get that team, because if he doesn't, that Philly team is they did that whole tank job. Mm-hmm. And they ended up with 2 really good players and screwed up Okafor pick, and they screwed up I can't think of his name, the number 1 pick from Washington State.
Markelle Fultz?
Markelle Fultz. They screwed those pickups so badly. Imagine if they hit on those. Imagine if they took Jason Tatum.
You know, and
you have Simmons, Tatum, and Embiid on that team.
Actually, I'm sort of glad you brought that up because Tatum is one of 2 players that I just like, 2 very, very super young players. Obviously, they're not Hall of Famers at this point, so I'm going to say him and Devin Booker, that I can't wait to watch next year.
Yeah. Yeah. So, by the way, someone else who really helped themselves this playoffs, just in general, the whole Denver Nuggets team was great to watch. But oh my God, his name just popped out of my head because it's the end of a very long week. What's his name? Their best player, the big white dude.
Jokic.
Jokic, thank you.
Yeah.
One of my best friends actually is a Denver Nuggets season ticket holder. He's a Celtics fan, but he's been living out in Denver for a while now, and he has the money to become a season ticket holder, and there are plenty of seats available generally, or they were when he started. But that team was super fun to watch. And Jokic is way better. He's everything I anticipated, like it would have been to watch. Oh God, my brain is off. The Russian guy who played for the Trailblazers, and we only got him at the end of his career. Great passer. Well, I can't think of his name. He's a Hall of Famer too.
I'm blanking on that one too.
I'm blanking on it too. But anyway, I apologize to him because I'm trying to make a point. I should have thought of this sooner and had everything in front of me. But Jokic and Jamal Murray, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
I knew Jokic was good, but I don't stay up to watch Nuggets games generally. I may stay up to watch Nuggets games now. That team was so fun to watch. And they had never say die attitude, and it's not their fault. They ran into LeBron James.
Yeah, and
they went as far as LeBron James would let.
So I'm going to leave with sort of like one final thought here. So when LeBron won that fourth title, and you sort of knew, you could set your watch to it. You knew there was going to be article upon article. Well, is he better than MJ? I say no. What say you?
Here's what I'm going to say about that. LeBron James, and someone posted this outside. I actually have this issue at Sports Illustrated. Oh, for people who don't know, Sports Illustrated used to be a magazine and not a terrible website. Anyway, Sports Illustrated did their cover story on LeBron James in 2002. I want to tell you how long ago 2002 is. In the bottom right-hand corner of that cover, it had AOL keyword Sports Illustrated. That's how long ago 2002 was. We had AOL keywords that we needed to look stuff up. LeBron, since that moment, has been one of the most pressured athletes in the entire world. His entire life. Something Jordan never dealt with, something Kobe never dealt with. Kobe was very, very good, even as a teenager. But the dude was once traded for Vlade Divac, straight up. Mm-hmm. Right? Nobody thought Kobe was necessarily going to be Kobe. Everybody thought LeBron was going to be LeBron.
That's true.
And he has lived up. Other than the misstep with the decision, right? Where he thought it was a good idea to tell Cleveland in front of a whole bunch of kids from Cleveland that it was even from Miami. He has not had a scandal. He has not had a misstep. He has not had anything his entire career. He's been to 10 finals. 10. We're talking about the Clippers who've been around for, since they're the Buffalo Braves. What year was that, 1970? 72?
Like yeah.
Close to 50 years. Who've never even made a conference final. He's been to 10 finals. I'm saying that in the modern era, when Jordan is playing against guys like Elo, no offense to Craig Elo, who's very good for his time, but you don't see many Craig Elo-type players out there on the floor anymore in the NBA. That the players who LeBron are playing against are more athletic, they're better, and he has played more playoff games and more minutes. You know he's never missed a single playoff game in his career?
I didn't know that, but I that makes perfect sense. I don't ever remember him missing time hardly at all, except for last year with the Lakers. He missed quite a bit.
He almost, last year he hit that team. Why waste however many jumps he has left in his knees on the 2019 Lakers?
Right.
Just sit it out. There's no point. It was like when Paul Pierce was sat out in, the 2007, he injured his knee and then basically sat for 4 months while people were talking about him. Then the 2008 Celtics happened. There's no reason to waste your bullets on a team that's not going anywhere with someone like LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, and this is for against somebody who hated LeBron at the beginning, nobody has ever been under a microscope for longer without screwing up than LeBron James.
That's a very good point.
And I think that gives him a much better argument than a all-time great, probably the greatest shooting guard ever. The greatest shooting guard ever, who may have gotten in trouble for gambling and was forced to play baseball for 2 years.
Or may not have. We don't know. But yeah, I've heard that too.
Or may not have. But it was a notoriously prickly person. And I'm here in Chicago. Jordan is still probably the greatest. Kobe is someone else I'd bring up in the argument. Kobe is a significantly more selfish player than either LeBron or Jordan. And just by the way, Scottie Pippen, if you look at the playoff runs for those 6 teams, the only category where Jordan leads Pippen of the major categories is points. Jordan has significantly more points than Pippen. Pippen has more rebounds, more assists, more steals, more blocks in the playoffs than Jordan does, or when they're on the team together for those 6 championships. I would like to point that out. Now, I'm not saying LeBron hasn't played with great players, because he certainly has.
Right.
But I would make the argument that LeBron has now brought 3 different franchises to championships, which has never happened before. He's been to the championship game 10 times. He's been to the NBA Finals more times than Brady's been to the Super Bowl. And how many times are people like, oh my God, I can't believe Brady's in the Super Bowl?
I'm hoping that doesn't happen again this year.
I don't think it's going to. That team's not good enough. So the way things are going, we're probably going to get the Buffalo Bills against, the Arizona Cardinals, and the lowest Q rating Super Bowl of all time, because that's what 2020 should bring us. Although I would be rooting. Yeah, that would be great. It would be great. I want here's what I want. Since my Patriots are not going to win the Super Bowl this year, I want 2 franchises who have never won a Super Bowl against each other in the championship.
So you put the
That's what I'm going for.
So you put the Bills against the Vikings, and then the world implodes.
The Vikings have no shot. That Vikings team is. Sorry, completely tangent. When the Vikings were playing the Seahawks this past weekend, and they're at the 6-yard line, and they go for it rather than kick the field goal, they lined up to go for it. And I said they better be calling a timeout to my wife. I said, because if not, they will not get this, and Russell Wilson's going to drive down the field and score a touchdown to win this game. And they should fire the coach if he does not kick this field goal. They did not kick the field goal, and they forgot they were the Vikings and that they were playing the Seahawks, and they didn't get the yard they needed. And Russell Wilson went down and scored. And I said, I told you exactly what was going to happen. The coach needs to be fired immediately. Because if you kick the chip shot field goal, I'm counting that the Vikings can make a chip shot field goal. But if you kick the chip shot field goal, the worst thing that happens is that Russell Wilson goes down the field and scores a touchdown like we're going to, and then has to go for 2. which they missed, by the way, when they got down there. So he has to go for 2 to tie you and bring it to overtime. Put yourself in that situation, and not in the situation where Russell Wilson, the quarterback who I would want leading my team than any other quarterback in the league right now, and that includes Mahomes. And I felt that way for a long time. I would take Russell Wilson over Luck back when that was an argument over and over again. You put him in a situation where he's going to beat you because you're the Vikings. Of course you're going to lose that game if you don't kick that field goal. I was like, if he doesn't kick the field goal, he needs to be fired. He's going to lose. He didn't kick the field goal. They lost. And Mike Zimmer should probably be fired. But anyway. So Buffalo against the Cardinals is about as good as I can get, I think. Because I don't think there's any other NFC team that hasn't won or hasn't won in a while who's... The Panthers aren't good enough. What other teams in the NFC haven't won the Super Bowl? The Lions, they're definitely not good enough.
No, definitely not.
I mean, because the Bucks have won now. Bucks, Saints have won. Panthers haven't. Falcons. Well, they're definitely not going to be the Falcons. By the way, which team has the worst predictable brand? The Chargers are going to lose because they can't kick a field goal, or the Falcons are going to lose because they take a big lead on somebody. Which is worse?
So the Falcons. Also, too, I mean, like the best tweet I saw, I wish I could remember who the hell said it. They said, like, well, here we are in the last quarter of 2020. Let's hope we're playing the Falcons.
Yeah, that was great. I saw that too. Yeah, I mean, they have wasted the prime of Julio Jones and Matt Ryan.
Absolutely.
Matt Ryan, who would have a better career had they played for the Patriots and had not necessarily the Patriots. I'll give you any good team that has competent management. Matt Ryan or Matt Stafford?
Matt Ryan.
I think it's close. I'd actually take Stafford.
Really?
I think Stafford is absolutely insane if he actually plays with a decent team. But yeah, the point is both those guys are completely hindered by the fact that they're playing for an absolutely awful team and are too loyal to go someplace else.
I'll leave with this. I got one closing thing though. The Beach Dogs won a game. My fantasy football.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was so sad. Speaking of the Bills, so I'm tied 62-62 with just the Bills game left. And as we know, they lost. They lost pretty bad. But I had 3 players. My opponent had none. I got 1 point. In the combination of Devin Singletary, Cole Beasley.
Yep.
But I also had the Bills' defense.
Yeah, I had Singletary on my team as well. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. Like they say about the bar exam, every point over passing is a wasted point. So absolutely. Congratulations on your win.
So I have something for next week, possibly. All right. We have decided on the finalists for the fictitious halls. If they're up or if they're ready to go up, that's something to talk about. There'll be some interesting ones, some surprises, some strange omissions. And the runaway leader will shock you. Or maybe it won't. A year ago, it never would have happened. No. Hello? Oh, shit. So yeah, there's one person. I'm really excited to tell you about that and how he was a runaway. So it's a he. So you've got that. Just destroyed everyone in the semifinals ballot. Will that parlay into the finals? Don't know. I think there was a bit of timing involved. And when you find out who it is, you'll understand exactly why.
Trying to think who this could be. It's Bugs Bunny, isn't it? I knew it.
I will say that it's not Bugs Bunny.
Okay. Is it animated or real life? Can you give me that much?
It's real life.
Okay.
Which is weird to say because we're still talking fictional.
Truth is sometimes stranger than fiction.
That is true. That is true.
That was too deep. We should probably end on that. That's the deepest we've gone in like 8 months.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, this is what happens when I'm sober.
Yeah, I just finished my VO and Coke, or VO and RC. So,
RC?
So that's one of the great things about living in the Midwest is that RC is readily available.
I thought that...
Far superior to either Coke or Pepsi.
I haven't seen that in 20 years.
That's because you haven't been to Chicago.
Well, when I was in Chicago, I never saw RC. Holy crap. I thought that was a completely dead brand. Well, look what I learned today.
Well, actually, there is a completely dead brand after today. Coke has announced to no longer make Tab. They announced that today.
They're not making what?
Tab anymore?
Oh, I thought that was dead too.
I thought it was dead, except that all the secretaries in every office I've ever worked on only drink Tab. The only people who ever drink Tab are like the secretaries and front desk people at offices I've worked at.
Look at that.
Because there's always a running joke. I'll pick up your Tab. Secretaries. Not even wrong. It's one I've heard a bunch. So.
Yeah, they must have perfected those fake smiles. I never heard that.
Yeah. It's more a running joke than anything else. I will say the only thing, I was in Minnesota once as a kid, and literally the only thing I remember about Minnesota, I must have been 5 or 6, was that they had a vending machine where can of soda only cost 35 cents. So this was back in like 1984, 85. And that it was RC, and I had never heard of RC before. But the fact it was 35 cents, it automatically made it my favorite soda. Because other sodas were either 50 cents or 75 back where I was from back then.
See, nice. When I was in Japan,
the only memory of Minnesota.
When I was in Japan, I saw vending machines, but they had totally different items in there. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. There we go. That's a more appropriate ending for us, man. So I'll talk to you next week.
All right. Stay safe. Thank you all for listening. We hope everyone out there stays safe and look for new content regularly from us at NotInHallOfFame.com.